Welcome to Happy Hour!
Welcome. I'm Maya Jasper White, the co-director of Celestina. We are so happy to have you all here for part deux of our Sounds Promising Young Composers. Brian, our resident host and artistic partner, will be hosting tonight, so we will hand it off to his capable self. If you're new here, the ground rules we're playing during the slideshow, but I'll quickly kind of blast through them. If you don't like the chat, you can ignore it, and we've made it as easy as possible for you to do that. Please refrain from using the chat to tell everyone else not to chat, because lots of people enjoy it. And YouTube Live, there will be instructions on how to do that as well. So without further ado, here's Brian.
Hello, good evening. It's so great to welcome you to the second part of our Sounds Promising Young Composers Spotlight. Just quickly, Derek's extremely meaningful explanation of his name change and the slight dissonance between our cheeky answers. We don't want to diminish any of the deep meaning behind Derek's name change. But Derek, you're cool with us having some fun, right?
No, I love it. It's awesome.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Last installment, a couple of weeks ago, and by the way, I hope everyone had a safe and fun and happy 4th, however you chose to celebrate. Last spotlight, I made a cocktail called the Corpse Reviver, and all the dead composers behind me, because I believe that the now of music always connects to the past of music, and what is happening now and next can inform and surprise and delight us in our old favorites. So today I've cracked open, oh dear, my face, On These Bones IPA, because on these bones of the dead composers, the tradition and the history of classical music continues. This, by the way, is from Institution Ale Company. So I will smash that can when we're done, because let's not fall in love with our institutions too much. But
hey, Brian, do you mind if I just say a few words about Sounds Promising, like the program, just in case somebody hasn't been here before?
I'll drink my beer.
Awesome. So just for anybody who's new here, Celestina is a presenting organization. We before the pandemic, we were doing well over 20 events a year. And since then, this is our 63rd happy hour, and we're gearing up for our upcoming live concert season 2. So we're a concert series, but a big part of our mission includes education. And we started the Sounds Promising program for musicians still undergoing training, as well as musicians who are just starting their professional careers. So the idea is to give the next generation a very practical kind of training, not only to go after abstract artistic excellence, but also to guide them through artistic meetings, rehearsal processes, communication with performers, in articulating the artistic vision, and also thinking about concert format. So in line with that philosophy, we always, integrate Sounds Promising into our concert series like we are today. And we have to say a huge thank you to our members and our donors and our colleagues at Long Beach Block by Block, because your support has enabled us to offer all of the Sounds Promising composers a full scholarship this year. So just wanted to tell you about that. We're going to be gearing up for our next season of Sounds Promising, so please let all of your people know. And that was it. Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely. And yes, Steve Kowalski, that is the saying, we stand on shoulders of giants. I'm married to a physical therapist, so I can say that a shoulder is a bone, and they're dead. No, I say this just before, sorry, Britni, I don't mean to be delaying my introduction of you, but I feel very strongly that we don't do the next anyone. Like back in the day, we shouldn't do the next anyone. Brahms was supposed to be the next Beethoven, and that weighed on him so heavily, it took him 20 years to write his first symphony. And then he realized, oh wait, no, I'm not the next Beethoven, I'm the Brahms. And then it took him 6 weeks to write his second symphony. That's all I mean by having fun with the dead guys and the bones and the composers. With that said, I don't know if this is a good segue or not, but Britni Louise, welcome in. We're just absolutely delighted to have you with us and to hear your music. First of all, how are you doing and where are you?
First of all, hi, Brian. It's so nice to meet you. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. My name's Britni, and I'm in Atlanta currently. It's around, what is it, nine-ish here.
Excellent. Well, thanks for staying up for us here on the West Coast. The sun hasn't gone down yet. Why don't we get right to the music and then let's talk afterwards. Introduce us to your piece, which is titled Victory, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Victory is a string quartet with a little bit of voice. You might hear a familiar voice, which is mine. And it came from the events of last summer and just kind of like thinking about what freedom and victory has meant historically for us and what it can and will continue to mean, like what that journey toward it will continue to mean.
Beautiful.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty.
17, 16 months, and they still haven't invented an applause button on Zoom, but powerful, amazing. I'm actually going to start by amplifying something that Stephen Unwin said in the comments. He says, I love the way the music breathes. It's not afraid to pause and take its time, but it also has urgency to it and anticipation. Can you reflect on that reflection on your music?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I had my camera off the whole time because I was like, I don't want these people to see me crying. But everybody was spot on in the comments. I think that the beginning and the end, you can kind of feel that marching vibe. And between then, there are times of like reflection in different ways. So like this first slower section after the march piece, it's kind of, you're in mourning, you're grieving some things. And then we kind of come out of that and we go into, okay, but there's still some hope here, but we're in that, like, you know, the bottom end of hope, like we're on our way to standing up kind of thing. And then we go back into like, oh, you know what? Actually, we got this. This is what we've been here for the whole time. And so then we get back into the march and we're like, back to victory we had, you know, marching forward.
Yeah, it does feel, I love that it's, you know, it's victory throughout. And that victory feels like aspirational in places of like, we're not at this thing. And then yet also like victory is not a destination, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your musical background. How did you come to composing?
Wow, that's a great question. Thank you. My parents are both musical, so I grew up in somewhat of a musical household. But I actually wrote my first composition of any kind. It was a choral piece for Spelman's Glee Club, which is a women's choir. That was my senior year of college. And it was then being in the Glee Club since my freshman year and engaging with the choral music and having sang choral music throughout like elementary, middle school, high school. I had already fallen in love with it. And I was like, you know what? I want to make music that makes me feel like this music makes me feel. So I wrote my first piece and I loved it so much so that I changed my major in college at my senior year to music composition. And I met my mentor, Dr. Carlos Simon, and I got my degree in choral composition. And that was the beginning of it all. That was the beginning of it all.
Wow. So writing mostly choral music then as a choral composition degree, with a choral composition degree. How much instrumental writing have you done and how do the two worlds compare?
Wow. This was actually, so it's not technically my first instrumental piece because I did write like a piano ditty, but this is, I consider it my first real instrumental composition. And I was so intimidated by it. I gotta be honest. I was so intimidated by it starting out because I was just like, I don't even know how to play these instruments. I don't know what their ranges are. Like we learned it in a class and just like that, it was gone, you know? So I was like, I don't want to write anything that I'm going to have to change. That was kind of the attitude I came in with. And then I started and Derek had to do some prompting and kicking down the road, gentle kicking, but kicking nonetheless. And suddenly it just clicked. I was like, first of all, this sounds pretty good. And secondly, they're not that dissimilar. Writing for the string quartet and writing for an SATB, like I saw Maya saying in the chat, it's not so dissimilar at all. I just had to get out of my own head about it.
You mentioned before we began the event, you mentioned your work as a community organizer. I'm curious, what fronts of activism are you involved with?
Yeah, so I actually work with an organization called the Free Atlanta Abolition Movement, and we are working toward abolition of prison and policing as it is currently. So we are trying to imagine a world in which we can transform and restore relationships and justice for folks instead of using punitive practices. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Does music play a role in that for you in any way?
I am working to incorporate it more. I think I kind of came into organizing like, I don't want to be the music person there. I'm the music person everywhere, you know? But it's one of those things that you kind of can't escape. And as I'm getting deeper and deeper into the work, I'm like, oh, this would be a great thing to write a piece about. Or like, of course, it's informing my work whether or not I want it to be, you know. So I'm definitely going to lean more in moving forward.
And you own a studio.
I do, yeah. It's 201 Studios.
What kind of work do you do there?
So we are all about artist development and artist empowerment. We mostly work with vocalists, but we have a few like folks who do art, like visual art, folks who do theater. And we do our best to make sure that they have a platform to share their art. They have resources to become developed either through mentorship or through outside opportunities, employment opportunities, and we make sure that our artists have resources to do what they need to do, whether it's space, whether it's funds, whether it's equipment, whatever it is. So that's us.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh, thanks, Marissa, for catching that. There was a question about the organization that you work with.
Oh, that's
Atlanta, but it's
correct. Wow.
Already in the chat because Marissa is all over it. You also mentioned that you're a kidney donor. What can you tell us a little bit about that experience for you?
It was 3 years ago now. In August, it'll be 3 years. I donated a kidney to one of my good friends. It was actually a surprise. He didn't know until like the morning of. He saw me in the waiting room at the hospital, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "What do you think I'm doing here? Like, they wouldn't have let me up here if I wasn't, you know." So it was that whole thing. There were tears, and long story short, he's doing great now. And it's still something that I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did it, but I would totally do it again, 100% in a heartbeat.
Wow. You're speaking so like nonchalantly about something that's so life-giving.
It's just kind of one of those things. I think a lot of the people who know me would say like, that's definitely in Britni's bag. Like it's, you know, definitely something that she would totally do. So I think it's like, I'm still trying to digest what it means to have done that, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and for sharing Victory with us. Congrats on the virtual premiere and can't wait to hear it in person someday as well.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Brian.
My pleasure. Kian Ravaei is our next sounds promising young composer. And Kian, oh, good. The Beatles in the background. That's excellent. As a super fan myself, I love to see that. How are you doing and where are you is always the first question.
Hi, Brian. I'm doing pretty well. And I am currently in Los Angeles.
That helps a little bit, but Los Angeles is big. So let's go zip code or neighborhood.
I'm in the valley, like the Woodland Hills area.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Well, welcome, and let's do the same thing. Let's get right into the music. So introduce us to Family Photos.
So Family Photos is kind of a musical collage of personally significant places I visited with my family in childhood. It's in 3 movements without pause. The first movement is called At the Carnival, and it tries to capture that spectacle of the neighborhood carnival. The second movement is called On the Tehran Tower, and it's inspired by Iranian classical music and my childhood visits to Tehran. The Tehran Tower is a giant tower in Tehran. I think it's like the 5th tallest tower in the world or something. And the third movement is called In Arcadia, which is the town where I grew up, Arcadia, California. But it's also referring to the Arcadia of Greek mythology, which is a kind of heaven on earth. I had a pretty good childhood. Very blessed.
Beautiful. Well, let's listen to Family Photos.
Go, Kian.
So, based on the chat, I'm comfortable saying we've got a new hit slow movement that has just been unleashed on the world. Just stunning, really beautiful. And again, I can't wait to hear that in a concert hall where we'll then get that moment where the silence starts and the music is ending, and you can't exactly quite tell when the music has ended, and you can still hear like the breathiness on the bows of the strings, and everyone just sits there for a moment. But just beautiful. What's your reaction seeing what people are saying about your music and hearing it in this venue?
I am just so moved and so grateful to have had this opportunity and to have had such an exceptional performance by the Celestina resident artists that is so filled with love.
So I understand you, in the composition process for this piece, you went back to your Iranian roots and explored, I guess for the first time, Iranian classical music. What was that experience like for you?
That was a really illuminating experience for me. And Derek actually inspired me to do it. I took a class at UCLA on Iranian music, and I was lucky to have the help of Farzad Almuzigar. And he was instrumental in helping me compose this movement, actually, because he helped me understand the elements of Iranian music and the complexity of Iranian music theory that was required to create a work that wasn't Iranian on the surface, but Iranian on a deep level.
Mm. And what exactly does that mean then?
You know, in the history of classical music, there's a lot of music that is kind of Middle Eastern on the surface, augmented seconds and Turkish cymbals and Turkish marches and things like that. So I wanted to create something that I guess only I could create, given my positionality as a Iranian American, as someone who grew up with that music to an extent.
Yeah. In fairness to Beethoven, who included the Turkish music in his Ninth Symphony, I do love that he did that, because he's saying all people will become brothers and sisters, and he's saying that by using music of the supposed enemies of the Austrians. And so he's like, no, when I say all people, I mean all people. And then he does his Turkish thing. Like, now we would do it differently, but man, it was the right move.
Totally.
This piece is such a study in contrasts, from the super energy, highly rhythmic opening to that ravishing slow ending. You got some beef with the Celestina musicians, or do you just like writing really challenging music for them?
Oh my gosh! Well, you know, they're such amazing players, and I've been going to their concerts and listening to their music for 2 years. So to an extent, I knew what they were capable of. I didn't want to go easy on them.
Oh, we were practicing that opening carnival craziness like until the moment that we hit record.
All right.
Can I also just jump in a little bit for a moment here? And
Please,
I was just listening to that, and it was my first time hearing it too. And all the emotions just came back. And Kian, I'm waiting for that lament.
You know, Yoshi asked me to compose him a lament when he dies. And I said, I think I'd rather compose something honoring you before you die.
It was basically the cutest moment ever, because Yoshi just sort of like casually, put his cello down and was like, "Hey, Kian, can I ask you something?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." What? Like, "When I die, can you write me a lament?" And Kian, his response was basically, "Okay." So adorable. Yeah. That is all.
That is very on brand, Yoshi. You mentioned, Kian, that you, during the course of the pandemic, you played and wrote a chorale every single day.
Yeah. So this is something that my mentor at UCLA, Richard Daniel Poor, encourages his students to do. And I started playing through Bach's 371 chorale harmonizations. I'm currently on 350-ish, actually. So I start my day by brushing my teeth, eating some breakfast, and then I go and play my chorale. And then I go and write a short chorale. And it's actually a really great way to warm up, because musicians have to warm up when they practice. And I think it's helpful for composers too, as well.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. I'm thinking about the gorgeousness of the ending of your piece, and you also mentioned you lost a friend over the course of the last year, and you said that loss in your life completely changed the way that you think about music. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was really on my heart to talk about tonight. And my friend Noah DeVico passed away very suddenly in a skateboarding accident. And there are two reasons it changed the way I think about music completely. One of them is that I was devastated about his loss. And the morning after I heard that he had died, I brushed my teeth, I ate breakfast, and I sat down at the piano like I do normally. And I thought, can I really be doing this? Noah's dead. And I'm here writing music. And I used to write a lot of music with the intention of impressing people, or with the intention of glorifying my own compositional ability. So I realized that day that writing music is the only thing that feels right to do, if the music is sincere, if the music is not for me but for others, if the music comes from a place of love and vulnerability. And the second thing is that before Noah passed, his family played him his favorite music. And that to me is a testament to what music can mean to people. And it made me think, what are the pieces that I would listen to on my last day on earth? And that just has completely changed my values as a composer.
Yeah. Wow. That's thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. And that's really beautifully said. And you impressed us with your music too. So you can do both. Thank you so much for this piece, Family Photos. Just absolutely gorgeous piece of music. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. So grateful.
And we have one more composer whose music we would love to share with you now.
Wait,
Maya or
one
Kevin,
thing.
do you want to jump in and do the nonprofit thing? It's
Yes.
been so long since I've done a pledge drive. I'm out of practice.
Okay. I'm sure that's not the case. It's okay. So I mentioned in the beginning of the event that it is because of your support, the members and patrons and our colleagues, musician colleagues too, that we can actually, offer this program on scholarship. If you are seeing what the fruits of this program, what they look like, what they sound like, and you want to be a part of supporting the next generation of composers and musicians, you can make a tax-deductible donation to Celestina. We will put how you can donate in the chat, and Marissa's already done that. And this is our 63rd happy hour. We are planning on continuing, for as long as we can, because we have this community and we wanted to keep on thriving. So if you enjoy what we're doing at our happy hours as well, please consider donating. And we have our upcoming season. We have hospital concerts. We play for people in the ICU. We do all kinds of stuff. So you can go on our website and check it out. But if you want to be part of Celestina, we just encourage you to donate. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would just add, this is like a tangible return on what you donate, right? Is this music wouldn't be here without you. If you remember already, this music wouldn't exist. So you're helping make it happen. So thanks if you are, and if you aren't yet, come on into the family. It's great fun. You'll love it. Anna Kouchnerov is here. Anna, welcome.
Hello.
Same question. How are you and where are you?
I'm doing very well, and I'm slumming it in Hollywood, Los Angeles.
Beautiful. And same format. We'll get right into the music, and then we'll chit chat afterwards. The piece is titled "Kingdom Come," and why don't you introduce it to us?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm really grateful for this experience because it's the first time I've heard my music played back to me by other musicians, and the first piece I've written for string quartet. Despite being a lot of firsts, I feel like I was experimenting quite a bit and testing my own bravery too, because I'm dancing in this video. This is written for string quartet, a dancer doing rhythmic footwork, and recorded or live clapping. I think the main influences for the styles are coming from a combination of digested sounds from some root traditions, including Western and African blues, Celtic, and Balkan music. Eventually, I'm hoping to make this movement part of a larger piece called Kingdom Come, after a poem I wrote of the same name. Generally, I'm really interested in investigating how dancers and musicians can inform and inspire one another in both the performance space and in the composition process itself. I had to do it on my own this time around, but that was fun too. I hope you like it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you.
I was going to say relentlessly joyful, but Lou said a sensory overload of joy, and I think that's better. So, so what was it like to put that together? So you've got a poem that you wrote, you're dancing in the piece, you've got the music, so you've got three different components all going on. Was it like difficult to keep track of what's influencing what and all those moving parts, or did it just kind of solidify naturally and comfortably for you?
A lot of it was uncomfortable, but I think that's why I grew so much from this. But I picked up a mix of violin playing techniques from getting heavily involved with the ethnomusicology program at UCLA when I was a student there. So I've ended up pairing that with my interests in dance. So some of the movement influence you saw in the video, it's coming from 1 year of studying Kathak and flamenco, a passion I actually discovered right before the pandemic started. But writing this piece, I was mostly alternating between using improvisation on violin, rhythmic phrases from the footwork I was doing naturally, and timings from body movements. And allowed me to experiment and play around if I kind of jumped between them. So it was never that I was just plugging in, clapping and dancing after the fact. It was actually very much part of the, I think, the groundwork, the skeleton behind the melody. So, but I was really writing this with the sole intention of having the best representation of the moments I was having fun and showing that the music or rhythm made me want to dance. It kind of reminds me of showing someone a game you made up, so it's fun. You made the rules up to suit your liking, but then it opens up a whole lot more to invite other people into your game and watch them hopefully have a good time as well. But also, fun fact, I did most of the writing while staying up at a farm in Hidden Valley. Which was very interesting because I had to go outside a lot, so I wouldn't disturb people with my noise making. So my first audience was basically a lot of goats, camels, and donkeys, actually.
Excellent. Were they a receptive audience?
Ambivalent, I think, at most. But it was inspiring me, which I think was the
beautiful. Beautiful. Classical music people like to know how much of things are written down and how much is improvised and how you make the notation and how do you tell the performers what to play and how it goes basically. Did you use the traditional notation techniques? Did you write everything down? Is there stuff that's non-traditional in how you notated the music?
It's a gnarly score. I wrote as much of it as I could down, and I actually recorded myself playing all the parts so that the Celestina musicians would have as much material as possible. I knew they were going to do an amazing job, but I also felt more secure being able to show my sound as much as possible because this is such a crazy mix of so many things I love. And I just absolutely am so happy that in the comments, people are just naming all these different traditions and cultures that they can hear in this. And that makes me very, very happy because I was really, really hoping that you wouldn't hear just one thing over all others, because I don't think that's how we absorb influences or music in this day and age, especially. So,
I jotted down some of those. Someone said Senegalese, Moroccan, Appalachian, Irish, Appalachian Hollywood Hills. I don't know if that's an actual sound tradition, but
oh boy.
I love it.
Yeah.
But what else is there? You mentioned Balkan at the top as well, and flamenco.
Yeah, it's mostly, I got to say that it's coming from just really loving the way that clapping and community and engaging with dance is done in flamenco. But this isn't flamenco, and this isn't really based on anything I'm doing there. But it is coming from exploring that and then trying to engage some of the other cultures I've been studying at the UCLA music department. I was doing a lot of Balkan music, I was playing Middle Eastern music. I was playing Chinese musical instruments as well. And I did try some old time. I've had a lot of wonderful jazz experiences. And I've played in Indonesian gamelans. I mean, I've been trying a lot, and I will continue to try many things. But yeah, it's hard to narrow down a lot of the influences, but I do really gravitate towards what I hear in the sub-Saharan region and north part of Africa.
Absolutely beautiful and just so much fun. Thank you for this music.
Thank you.
And we're at the the 1 hour point of our program, but I did want to bring in Derek Sky to our conversation because none of the music that you heard tonight would be possible without Solestina members. None of the music you heard tonight would be possible without the mentorship of Derek Sky. Derek, how are you feeling tonight?
I feel great. Fighting off a couple mosquitoes, but no, no, I'm really proud of all these folks. All of them did a fantastic job, and I think what was the most telling, I think, is for me, I never really consider myself like beyond a student, right? And so when I'm working with them, I would treat them the way that I would want to be treated as a student, which is give me all the information you have. Right? And so that's one of the things that we would do is I would just give them everything any kind of information that they wanted. Like, let's figure it out. Let's put this stuff together. I'm a huge fan of just listening to the world's music everywhere, and so that whenever a student comes and they say, hey, well, what if I want to mix this with that, like how does that work? Well, there's a way, and I think that kind of exploring is what makes us better communicators as people, like across communities. And that's one of the things I've loved about all of the participants, including the ones from the week before last week, is they all came to Sounds Promising with an open heart, okay, an open mind, and just ready to roll and ready to like risk, ready to throw some risk in there. I think there's a lot of times when people do these programs, it's a composer thing, and there's like this kind of connotation with composition being some sort of rigid thing when it's never been that way. That's the other thing that kind of boggles my mind. I think it's more of like a media, the bestowing from the media of what classical music is. Meanwhile, there's like this thing that isn't always in the media where like there's all this freedom that you can do whatever you want and experiment however you want to conjure a new voice.
Yeah. Well, as one of the media, I try to share that viewpoint as often as I can. We want to give you all an opportunity to ask any questions you may have of all of our young composers this evening. Before we do that, however, we have one beautiful encore, I guess, for tonight. Derek, let's hear some of your music. Why don't you introduce us to Grace Unbound?
Oh, that's right. That's right. So for anybody that wasn't here when I spoke about it the first time, Grace Unbound was written shortly around the death of Aretha Franklin. One of my favorite pieces of all time is a recording of Aretha Franklin singing Amazing Grace in 1972, I believe, right down in Los Angeles at a Baptist church down in Los Angeles. And she stretched that Amazing Grace out to 16 minutes. And it became a piece for me. Like every aspect of that recording is like magic as a work of art, as a work of music. And when Ben came to me, it was like, Derek, I want to commission you to write this piece for flute and piano. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect opportunity for me to really kind of put forth this energy try and reach some of the energy that Aretha Franklin put towards Amazing Grace, which is one of my favorite songs. So this piece is called Grace Unbound. There's some dancing in it. I ended up dancing in it somehow. And then there's some clapping in it. For any of our veteran Celestina members, I'm sure you guys remember when this piece was premiered live. And so this is a recording and a video that's with it. And I believe we're just doing a short rendition.
The trailer, yeah.
We'll unpack the rest of it at a different time. But
awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's hear it. Amazing.
So,
Just excellent. And Ben's suit game is really on point as well. So
Always.
So much.
shout out to Barefoot Derek as well.
well, see, but there's this one part where Ben starts breakdancing. He like drops the stone, right?
That'll be at the premiere.
Yeah.
Tune in.
Excellent. I'd like to invite each of our composers back on screen for question and answer time too. And I don't know if Chris Stone is still here, but Chris, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, we'd love to hear it. And Britni, I realize it's 10:15 in Atlanta. Thanks for hanging with us. It doesn't appear that Chris is here. Oh no, just kidding. I'm just slow. Chris is here.
Hello. How are you? Thanks so much. This is such an amazing concert. It's such a privilege to hear this awesome new music, and also performances were just, really stunning. I had a question, Anna. The rhythmic components of your piece are so complex, actually, and fresh and new. And I wondered what it felt like for the quartet to be putting those rhythmic components together. And I just wanted to hear how it felt to make sense of that and how it all works, because complex is the word I would put, multi-voiced, and I don't even know, I can't define it. So I wanted to hear what it felt like as performers to make that work.
Really fun. And I will say that, having played a lot of Derek's music and our friend Rena's too, those kinds of layered rhythms we're pretty comfortable with those. And we also did a lot of practicing and rehearsing with the clapping track that Anna made. And, Derek and I were sitting here lobbying like, oh, we should put that back in the piece. It sounded really cool with the whole thing. But it's just so fun. There's so many layers. And anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say that, Anna really went the extra mile. I mean, she basically provided us with guide tracks for each of the parts, so we could prepare our parts by playing along with them and getting to know what it was that she was going for as far as ornamentation and like sound quality and all those kinds of things too. So she really did a lot of prep work for it, I'd say. I mean, if it wasn't clear, what Maya was referring to is that there actually she prepared a clap track for us, and it had, I think, 3 different clapping rhythms that were, 4, okay, that were laid on top of each other. And there was cross rhythms in there too. And it was, it was really interesting to play along with that. And we had expected to play to that, the final version would have some type of clap track that was going to be underneath it too. But we actually recorded to that. So, it wasn't a click track, but it was at least it was a good reference for us as well. So I mean, to be honest, I think we would have probably had a pretty hard time playing it without it. I think that we would have had the recording process would have taken longer. I think that would have been solved by just more time and more rehearsals with the piece. But given what we were, the time that we had to work with it and everything, it really helped a lot. But I mean, props to Anna for being very, very prepared with all of that. Yeah.
I'd like to add to that and just say the tracks were really helpful, but actually once you start understanding the music, it was the rhythmic part was so gestural that I think it just made sense and felt natural. So I think, as Kevin said, I think with time we could have done it totally without it, but yeah.
Yeah. And, Anna showed up to one of the rehearsals as well. And, she, all the composers did basically. I mean, Britni couldn't because we couldn't fly her out for it. But what we wanted to do with the program was, I mentioned this in the last Sounds Promising program, but, we've met with the composers every month, where we kind of had a group meeting and we would talk about what was going on with their pieces. They would send us the pieces and like in progress, and then the final versions, and they're each time they would refine it. And then being there and like having to communicate with us what they wanted from the performance, you know, and kind of fine tuning what we were doing. I think that was a big part of it too. You know, I mean, there's only so much you can communicate with the written text on the score. So like actual human interaction, you know, it was very, very valuable, I'd say. Yeah.
Stephen Unwin has a question. Are you still here?
So I've always been a fan of the string quartet, you know, started with Haydn, and it's clearly in good hands with these three young composers. You know, its future is bright. It's a wonderful medium. I was curious how the three of you came to be writing string quartets.
How about we go in order of the event? Britni, you first.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. At the beginning, they were like, this is the set of instruments you have to choose from. And in my first lesson with Derek, you know, he was asking, well, what do you have in your portfolio? And I was like, oh, you know, this, that, and the third, nothing with any of the instruments that were listed. He was like, oh no, you should definitely get that foundational piece under your belt into your portfolio before you do anything else. So I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, Derek. We'll do a quartet.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, so we asked the composers to write for our resident artists. So that's basically string quartet, flute, and piano. Yeah, and the first program we had a bigger variety of.
No narrator. I'm kidding.
We offered them that, Brian. They just didn't take it. I'm just kidding.
With good reason.
No. I mean, our first Sounds Promising program, the one that we did a couple of weeks ago, we had piano and flute, but this one we grouped together because of the string quartet aspect.
Go ahead, Kian.
All right. This is such a great question. I think the string quartet is exciting and daunting. It's daunting because it has such a rich history, and it feels like everybody has written all the beautiful pieces for string quartet that are ever going to exist, that ever need to exist. But on the other hand, it's exciting because you could subvert some of those expectations of what a string quartet can be. So I know in my piece, I tried to build off of that tradition, but also at times subvert it.
Anna.
Well, when I came to Derek, he told me, and I seconded it, that I needed a challenge because I've only ever written for violin. And string quartet, frankly, was something I was just always really daunted by. But one thing I would really like to say just about Derek's mentorship is that he can really acknowledge you as a person and an artist. And, you know, he helps you see how much of your personality and authentic artistic expression there is to love and to respect. And that, contrary to what might be said in your head, as a new composer, the world actually really wants to meet you. So I'm just really thankful to be introducing myself that way here.
We're grateful to be introduced to you. That actually segues beautifully into Ben's question. Ben, if you're still here, you phrased it really nicely about what it was like to work with Derek as a mentor, and how he helps you find your own musical voice. But now I'm taking the words right out of your mouth.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, Anna basically just was speaking right to this, but I was just curious for each of the composers tonight, you know, working with someone like Derek, who's obviously so accomplished and also has such an amazing mastery of his own musical voice. How do you both get specific instruction from him? I guess it'd be a question for Derek too, how his philosophy of teaching, but how do you get that specific conveyance of information and knowledge about composition while also obviously being able to each craft your own unique voice? Because I feel like that's a really fine line to walk. But it was so interesting hearing the three of your pieces tonight because each one was so distinct. Like there was never any question that it was each of your pieces, and there were three separate ones. But I could also hear elements of where you might have worked with Derek on certain things or gotten inspiration. So I'm just curious how that unfolded in your working together.
Who wants to go first on that? Go for it, Britni.
Oh, I can. Thanks, Ben. I think one of my favorite parts about working with Derek was that he always had such thorough answers to all of my questions. When I first started out writing the piece, I was really concerned because I felt like I had a lot of like poppy things happening in the piece. And I was like, this is really not classical music. It sounds like a pop song. Like, I don't want to get laughed out. What am I going to do? And then Derek, in more words than I could have like imagined that I needed, but like saying all the right things, really just helped to bolster my confidence about, first of all, like living into my own voice, worrying about what is going to be perceived of it, because if that's what you want to write, then, you know, it's also music. Pop music is valid music. And also there are plenty of ways to dress it up, you know, and also all of those ways are already inside you. You have this voice and you have the capability to do these things with it. That was always Derek's. And no matter what he was talking about, like the point was, you definitely can do this. I have a couple of experiences I could tell you about where I've had similar experiences, and it helps so much more than like nitpicky things about the score, which we also went through, but like it was the exact empowerment and uplift that I needed every time to like move on to my next thing.
How about for you, Kian?
You know, I didn't go in expecting to be influenced by Derek's music, but it's just so contagious. And his mentorship, he was actually an amazing mentor for me with respect to thinking about issues of cultural appropriation when it comes to using music from other cultures. And I was grappling with this in my movement, dealing with Iranian classical music. And he just has so much wisdom to impart in addition to musical knowledge in that respect.
And Anna, anything you want to add to what you already said?
Oh, yeah, just listening to Derek's music the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, man, this is what I need all the time. So I'm very grateful that I can have it all the time. And in so many ways, Derek was just really helping me unlock myself and just kind of throw fear away. If anything, this whole 6 months or however long it's been Derek like pulling me out from under the couch. I'm like that scared dog that's just terrified of everything and runs under the couch. As soon as I see the potential, as soon as I see like my potential, I run. And then Derek's just there like pulling me out and telling me, you got this, you can do it. It's good, stop it, it's good. Yeah.
It does sort of turn things on its head. The way that we typically think about like classical music instruction is like to, you know, you got to lay down the law. And, you know, it sounds like this was true for all of you, but, you know, a hallmark of Derek and the way that he thinks about music is like, well, that's not wrong. Let's figure out like how we can make this work. Like no such thing as wrong. Just got to find a way to make it happen, right? Did you all find that as well? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think one thing that's like, as I listen to thinking back on all 6 pieces, you know, just never got the feeling that anybody was trying to fit in, like trying to be part of a tradition. You know, it's more just like we're creating the tradition as we're going. So I mean that's because of Derek, and also because I think each composer was brave enough to just do that, you know? So yeah, I'm proud of everyone. And you know, just like, it was so fun to play all that music and like to learn it and to try to bring like your visions to make them concrete, you know? And everything felt really authentic.
That's really well said, Kevin, too. And you know, I'm cheeky about the dead guys behind me whose faces have been scribbled out, but like that's what they all did. Like they found their voice, they found their way, and it's us now who run the risk of like lifting that up to a status where like, okay, we have to be like them instead of just be authentically ourselves and who we are and say what we have to say. Yeah. And like Derek is someone who pulls people out of that kind of thinking better than almost anyone I've met, I think.
Yeah.
So now that we've said so much about you, Derek, none of it good. What, I mean, does that ring true, what you're hearing from Kian and
Well,
Anna and Britni?
I think what I always love to imagine it is that there's this kind of this void that's like really scary, right? And then there's people that stand on the edge of the void and they take a step. And everybody behind them are waiting for them to take that step because everyone wants to know, is it going to be okay as you proceed through the void, right? And so with all 6 of these composers, what I always love to do is say, well, come stand with me at the void and let's take a step together, and we're going to take a step, and we don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try it. And but we're going to take that step together into the void, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So yeah, so I you know, with all of these students, you know, with all of these students,
Sorry, that's a pull quote, Derek. It's
all good.
We in the business call that a pull quote.
But that's the thing is
we're in broadcasting. That's hot tape.
I'm a student myself. Even when Kian and I were working on his piece, I'm still studying with my Persian classical music teacher, and Anna's been with her as well before, and so like there's like I'm never gonna stop learning. There's no end in sight. You know, I wish I, you know, could have several lifetimes in which I could remember each one. Right? To just keep it going. There's so many cool things going on in the world. So but yeah, I think they all have like remarkably individual voices, and I think yeah, the future is just absolutely just totally exciting. You know, I'm so excited about what's to come for sure.
Jason Kerr, we have not forgotten about you. You had a question for Kian about a specific Thomas Addis piece, which when you mentioned it in the chat, I was like, oh yeah. You want to ask your question?
Yeah, hi, Kian. First of all, I just loved all of these pieces. So bravo to all of you, really. So Kian, I know we chatted a little bit about this during the rehearsal thing, but I'm curious to hear how you're thinking about the relationship between your piece and Addis's Arkadiana, especially the O Albion, like, which is another one that's just like glorious slow movements. But it's like there's that spikiness of his music that just sort of all of a sudden like pops into these like moments of gorgeous lushness, right? That seemed resonant with yours. And I know we chatted a little bit about it before, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Totally. So I told this to Jason, but I actually had never heard that piece until after I composed the music. And I love Thomas Addis, so maybe some of that rubbed off. But Yoshi actually told me that he had performed the piece and it sounded just like that. And it's so interesting that both pieces are about this idyllic Greek Arcadia. That's just a really weird coincidence. But I think after listening to it, in terms of affect, both pieces are definitely going for the same thing. And I think one thing that I borrow from Addis in that movement is this idea of flow. I think his music is always in transition, which is something I really love.
Beautiful. Yeah, I posted the O Albion movement in the chat for those who don't know the piece. It is absolutely gorgeous. And that always reminds me of like an updated like Nimrod from the Enigma variations too. So is there anyone else who hasn't put a question in the chat that has something on your mind and want to ask these composers? And I'm just so grateful for each of the pieces this evening. As I did a couple of weeks ago, I did not watch them ahead of time, so I would be able to react to the music in real time as I hosted. And they were all three just wonderful, beautiful, exciting, energetic, ravishing surprises, each in their own, as people have been saying, distinct way. So congratulations to all of you for unleashing some really wonderful music onto all of us and into the world. And I think we may need to rename Sounds Promising. I think we need to rename it Sounds Ravishing. I don't know. I'm not the ED, so that's up to you, Maya.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Derek, first and foremost, for his amazing mentorship of these people, and the three that we had the week before last. I think Pratik and Sophie are both here, and Juan Salvador too. We said this last week, we really feel like this year was the year that Sounds Promising really hit its stride. And for that, we have to thank not only Derek and the amazing applicants that we had, from which, we called you guys, and for being such wonderful participants, but also our family of members. So really, thank you all for making this possible for all of us, even other audience members. Please spread the word about this program. Derek and I were also chatting. If you participated this year and you'd like to participate again, let us know. That's not off the table. If you feel there's still more that you can learn or benefit from by doing this program, we'd love to talk to you about it. So again, please consider supporting this program in the future, if you can, with membership or a donation. And other than that, just thank you, everybody. And we can't wait to see what you guys all do next. We couldn't be more proud, and it was just a delight to get to know you and play your music.
Yeah. And again, the costs of all of this were covered by membership, not by young composers.
Right.
Which I think is a really important and awesome thing.
Right. Zero
So,
tuition.
thank you for your membership and for donations and for making this happen.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thanks, Britni, Anna, and Kian. Beautiful music. A fun evening.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.